Starfield passed 17 million players and nearly 1 billion hours, yet Steam reviews remain mixed at roughly 57% positive. Xbox announced about 3,200 reductions, admitted unhealthy performance, and promised to cut management layers from as many as 14 to 5 or fewer. Now Obsidian is working with Bethesda on a separate Fallout project while Fallout 5 remains in pre-production. Behind those facts sits the conflict: Bethesda's creative ambition versus Microsoft's demand for faster, cheaper, more reliable output. By the end, we can answer whether Bethesda lost Fallout or merely lost the right to control its timetable. First, we need to kill the easiest lie before roasting anything: Starfield is not dead. Current figures say more than 17 million players logged almost 1 billion hours, with further stories, improvements, updates and Starbound content planned next year. Admittedly, those are large numbers, and pretending otherwise would turn criticism into fan fiction. However, large launch numbers do not automatically create lasting trust, strong word of mouth, or a community eager to defend every new announcement. SteamDB currently lists roughly 174,000 Steam reviews, with about 57% positive, which places the game in mixed territory. Crucially, Steam reflects one PC storefront rather than Starfield's complete audience. Before continuing, hit like for gaming breakdowns based on evidence instead of recycled outrage. Subscribe because the next part tests whether Xbox is finally fixing Bethesda or merely cutting the studio apart under corporate pressure. Second, Bethesda did not collapse overnight. It became dependent on the commercial strength of its older successes. Chronologically, Skyrim arrived in 2011, Fallout 4 followed in 2015, Fallout 76 landed in 2018, and Starfield launched in 2023. Elder Scrolls 6 was teased in 2018, yet Bethesda still has not announced a release date. Today, the studio says Elder Scrolls 6 is its primary development focus, while Fallout 5 waits in pre-production. That gap matters because an entire generation watched the teaser, changed jobs, paid rent, and received more Skyrim versions than officially confirmed sequel details. Success did not destroy Bethesda, but it weakened the urgency that normally forces a company to respect limited time. Third, the numbers explain why comfort lasted so long. Sales-wise, Skyrim has passed 65 million copies, while Fallout 4 recently crossed 35 million. Separately, Starfield reached more than 17 million players, although players are not the same measurement as copies sold. Clearly, people still want Bethesda worlds, and nobody can honestly claim the studio became commercially irrelevant. Instead, earlier victories supported the business while production cycles for new releases grew increasingly long. When older releases keep generating revenue, internal pressure to shorten development cycles can weaken across the company. Management can always say the next giant game needs more time, more systems, more technology, and a meeting about the meeting. Fourth, Bethesda's bugs changed from a tolerated flaw into part of the business model. Historically, players accepted broken quests, floating objects, and strange artificial intelligence because the worlds felt dense enough to justify the mess. Famously, Skyrim could break in hilarious ways, yet people remembered the towns, factions, caves, characters, and discoveries. Likewise, Fallout 4 had obvious technical scars, but its wasteland kept pulling players towards something nearby. Unfortunately, Starfield inherited the old excuse without matching that constant sense of discovery for many players. Community modders now maintain projects designed specifically to fix bugs, errors, and inconsistencies that remain in the base game. Additionally, creators across Bethesda's systems have earned more than $10 million in royalties through creations. Fairly, paid creators deserve compensation, and community work can extend a game's life. Cynically, Bethesda now relies on players to identify problems, community teams to repair them, and creators to sustain long-term engagement around each release. Fifth, Starfield faced a test Bethesda had avoided for decades. This was the studio's first new universe in more than 25 years, which meant no Elder Scrolls history, no Fallout iconography, and no childhood memory protecting every weak corner. Nobody could see a familiar vault suit and excuse a dull quest because they loved New Vegas 15 years earlier. Nor could another repeated outpost become sacred lore through nostalgia alone. Suddenly, Starfield faced judgment without an existing emotional connection protecting its weaker design choices. Once players complained about loading screens, empty planets, repeated locations, and slow exploration, Bethesda could not hide behind a beloved setting. Scale became the promise while depth became the actual test. Sixth, bigger never guaranteed better. 1,000 planets create an impressive headline, but numbers alone cannot make those planets distinct. Actual exploration works differently. since players remember meaningful places, surprising encounters, useful rewards, and stories that change how a location feels. Procedural generation can build terrain quickly, but terrain is not automatically adventure. Repeated structures can fill a galaxy while making the galaxy feel smaller each time the player recognizes the same layout. Menus connect distant systems efficiently, yet they can reduce the physical feeling of traveling through space itself. Consequently, enormous reach failed to give many players stronger reasons to care about where they landed. Predictably, the criticism was direct. Bethesda delivered extraordinary scale without enough handcrafted variety to sustain long-term exploration interest. 7th, and the Steam review replies turned criticism into comedy. Representatives responded to some negative reviews by defending design choices, including empty planets and loading screens. Customer support appeared to argue that players had misunderstood choices they did not enjoy. Certainly, developers can correct false claims and offer help when technical problems block progress. Arguing with a customer's experience is different, because no carefully written reply can negotiate someone into having fun. One response compared empty worlds with astronauts reaching the moon, using realism to defend design rather than address it. Somehow, that approach made Bethesda appear defensive rather than curious about why customers rejected the experience. Surely, confidence should not require disputing whether the audience genuinely felt bored. 8th, Shattered Space had the perfect chance to repair the relationship. Expansion launched on September 30, 2024, around a handcrafted House Veron setting. Audiences wanted tighter exploration, stronger quests, stranger ideas, and proof that the base game's problems were understood. Reviews instead described an expansion that often repeated Starfield's existing weaknesses, including shallow choices, familiar combat, weak motivation, and underused ideas. Some critics liked the atmosphere and focus setting, but the broad reaction never became the clean redemption story Bethesda needed. Cyberpunk received Phantom Liberty and changed the conversation around its future. Comparatively, Shattered Space mostly restarted the old argument. Redemption cannot repair trust when content repeats the criticisms it should answer. 9th, Xbox's July reset finally gave the accountability argument hard evidence. Specifically, Xbox announced about 3,200 reductions across its 2027 financial year, including about 1,600 immediate role eliminations. Leadership openly said the business was not healthy, growth had missed expectations, and some work passed through as many as 14 management layers. Executives promised to reduce those layers to no more than 5, and where possible 3. Microsoft also admitted that complexity had slowed decisions, blurred responsibility, and made delivery harder. Importantly, these are not angry YouTube theories, they are the company's own explanations for restructuring itself. Apparently, the underlying problem was straightforward. More approval layers had not produced better or faster decisions. Sometimes those layers increased delays while making individual responsibility harder to identify. 10th, nobody should celebrate the layoffs as if every eliminated worker caused Starfield's loading screens. Moreover, Xbox confirmed reductions across Bethesda and other divisions, while unions reported that developers and support staff were affected. Reports from Bethesda's unions describe hundreds of union positions disappearing across Bethesda and ZeniMax groups. Therefore, the clean fantasy where Microsoft simply removed useless managers is false. Real workers lost jobs, projects lost experience, and remaining teams may face heavier workloads. Accountability aimed upward can improve a company. Cost-cutting aimed downward can break the people expected to repair it. Uncomfortably, Microsoft may understand the structural problem, while still choosing a solution that damages production. Fewer layers can speed decisions, but fewer experienced workers can also slow everything else. 11th, Bethesda's new Fallout plan proves the old bottleneck has cracked. Confirmed plans include remasters for Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, although neither has a release date. Notably, Obsidian is collaborating on a new Fallout project, but Bethesda has not identified its title, size, genre, schedule, or connection to New Vegas. Mainline development still points toward Bethesda's Fallout 5, and calling the Obsidian project Fallout 5 would be false. Even so, fans no longer have to assume every future single-player Fallout release must wait behind Elder Scrolls 6, engine work, Starfield support, and Bethesda's traditional pace. Meaningfully, the franchise spent years trapped inside one production queue. Nevertheless, Obsidian's return breaks the idea that Bethesda alone must build every meaningful Fallout experience without transferring ownership. Fans reacted positively because the franchise could now move through more than one development route. 12th, the conflict is clear. Bethesda wants creative time, while Xbox needs dependable commercial output. Technically, Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5 will use Creation Engine 3, a shared platform intended to support several projects at once. On paper, that approach could preserve Bethesda's sandbox design, while reducing duplicated work and shortening the gap between major releases. Practically, shared tools protect creativity only when they are stable, properly staffed, and supported by experienced development teams. Cutting workers while promising more games can consume creative capacity. Roadmaps promise output, but production depends on experienced teams and sustainable workloads. Workers pay. Finally, Bethesda has not lost Fallout in the legal sense, the creative sense, or the commercial sense. Rather, it has lost the comfortable monopoly over when fans can expect another major project from that universe. Trust weakened through Starfield without making the game irrelevant or unsupported. Restructuring introduced accountability without proving that layoffs will improve quality. Collaboration brought Obsidian back without making it the developer of Fallout 5. Announcements expanded Fallout's future without providing release dates. Every positive announcement therefore raises questions about staffing, timing, execution, and whether the roadmap is realistic. Ultimately, Bethesda lost exclusive control over Fallout's schedule, but Microsoft has not yet proved that pressure will improve quality. Better leadership could shorten waits, improve focus, and stop giant projects from confusing size with substance. Worse leadership could rush unfinished games, exhaust teams, and use famous franchises as emergency revenue buttons. Creatively, the studio still has talented developers, enormous audiences, valuable worlds, and enough history to recover. Yet previous success no longer guarantees patience, because players now have evidence, alternatives, and much higher expectations. Corporate accountability matters only when responsibility reaches leaders instead of falling on workers. Hence, Bethesda lost its monopoly over Fallout's timetable, but not ownership or creative control. Structurally, Fallout development has already changed.